In this bite-sized episode of Link by Golf, we hear from the sports journalist Andy Devlin about his experience reporting on high-profile games for Scotland and the pressure on journalists during the game and after the game. There's some great fun in here, and I hope you enjoy it.
And then I joined the Sun in 2000. Again, Ian King had left, had taken up a job at the Sun. There was another job became available, and he put my name forward, and I went for an interview and got the job, and that was 24 years ago, my friend.
That's incredible.
At the time was a sports editor called Steve Wilsoncroft, a legendary figure, but I mean a real hard taskmaster, and I learned so much from him. I worked for him I ended up working with him for 7 years, and I think I made a mistake once, and he was down on a ton of bricks, calling me this, that, and the next thing, threatening me with all sorts. And I'll tell you what, I never made the mistake again.
I bet you didn't.
He just made you. It was the kind of fear factor, in those days there was a kind of revolving door in newspapers. So if you weren't producing stories, if you weren't, if your writing wasn't up to start, if you missed a deadline, you lived in fear of the sack, because in those days they could sack you. So it was a fraught 7-year period, but I'll tell you, I learned.
It's a tough industry, isn't it? Very tough.
So as I say, initially I remember Jim telling me, if you do 3 months, you'll do well, and that's me. 24 years I've been there now. Jeez.
And so in terms of working for the Sun, what kind of events in terms of football, and I know you covered some other sports as well when you had to. What kind of events would you be covering? What kind of things would you be into? What sort of people were you meeting at that point?
Early doors, it was kind of predominantly football. That's what I was brought on board to do. You had a chief football writer, you had a chief sports writer, you had guys who were further up the food chain than me. So you would get to do the bigger games now and again, but it wasn't always there. So it was good, because being a Motherwell lad, it allowed me to go back to my roots, if you like, back into Motherwell. You build up contacts at clubs like Motherwell, Kilmarnock, St Mirren, the smaller clubs, not the old firm, out with the old firm, the smaller clubs, which stand you in good stead, because there is a natural progression. People will retire, people will move on, and you will eventually get a crack at the big time. But the first 4 or 5 years, I'm not saying you were filling in around the edges, because you did get to do bigger games, but you were still very much learning your trade. It was a completely big. See, going from the Wisher Press or even the Rangers News, okay, you were working within the footballing environment, but going to the biggest national newspaper in the country, it was, unbelievable, the difference in terms of standard, quality, pressure, you name it. It was just, the level went through the roof, really. So it took a wee bit to adjust and get used to it, and then you get into a kind of routine. And as I say, there is a natural progression. People retire and move on, and you're but all that. Wilsoncroft was very good, because all that was training for when you would get. It's like a football player waiting for his chance. Somebody would be sick, somebody would be on holiday, and you would get an opportunity. And if you made a backside of it at a big event, you wouldn't get another opportunity for months. You would be back. It was almost like that. So if you didn't perform, you were taken out the firing line. You had to be at that level. It was manic, Steve. It really was. The best example, Ross, I'll give you is the night James McFadden scored in Paris. We beat France.
Who could forget that? What a goal!
Faddy scored. Now, it was myself and Bill Leckie, well-known journalist. Bill and I were there covering the game for the Scottish Sun, and Faddy scores. Now, it's the only time I've ever been in a press box where all the Scottish press got up and everybody was cheering and going bananas, and you just couldn't believe what we were watching. So I had 900 words of a match report to write, and they have these things down the side, the ratings, which they call man demands. Now, it was 30 words. It was at kick-off, it was 30 words a man. So I had that to do as well. So McFadden scores, Scotland are winning 1-0. You look at the quality of that French side. 10 minutes after the goal, my phone goes and it's Wilsoncroft. right, we're increasing the man by man, so I want 90 words a man. And I said, what? He says, I want 90 words a man on each player. I say, Steve, I've got my match today, 90 words a man, it's just split it with Bill. So I had to split. He did like 5 players, and I did the other 6 players. You're sitting on that with Rick Wakeman. So your match, the magnitude of it. So the final whistle goes, and again, the entire Scottish press corps out their seat, and then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute here, just so you sit and clatter the match. You think your man band's tidied up, but you're on deadline as well, so you're having to get the stuff across. And
that must be a strange feeling, Andy, where being Scottish and at that game, I mean, what a goal for a start and what a result. Right. And then you've got all the pressure after the game finishes.
That is the only time I've seen it, even in the rugby environment, where you don't. People say you're fans with typewriters, but seeing that circumstance, you don't really have time to think about what's going on in the park or whatever. You're just focused on getting your work done. So the final whistle went, and the phone goes again, and it's Wilsty in the phone saying, right, we're doing a pull out. And I said, what? He said, we're going to do a pull out. And I says, what do you mean a pull out? I says, what does that mean? He says, it means you interview anybody in a Scotland shirt, and get the words over to me. So Bill and it was chaotic. So anything that moved with a Scottish SF connection to the SFA was getting interviewed. Now in those days, we travelled with the team. We travelled with the team in those days.
Yeah.
So you're sitting on the bus, clattering out, all these words. And I remember you had to, you plugged your phone into your computer to send this was your kind of signal. So you plugged your phone into your Tandy machine, and it sent through this. There was no Wi-Fi or anything. I'm sitting up the back of the plane trying to get a signal, screaming at the pilot not to close the door because I still had one story to file. There's 2 or 3 other guys, and they say, "Don't 2 minutes, don't shut the door." Just trying to get the stuff away. And I remember feeling absolutely, just drained, just absolutely drained. Get back into Glasgow at say 2 a.m, and this was the genius of Wilsty. So Dad still be living in Motherwell at the time. So say you're home at 3:30 from the game and from the airport. My phone went again at 8 o'clock that morning, and it was Wilsty. Now, he knew that I had a relationship with Faddy, and I had got stories from McFadden in the past, and he'd been good with me.
Right, because he was at Motherwell.
Because he'd been at Motherwell, and I had got to know him quite well. So he picks up the phone, or dials my number at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's not that was brilliant last night, well done. His words were, you know what you need to do today, get me McFadden on the phone, and he hung up. So, you've
to the point.
So you've gone from, you're totally drained to get into your bed. You've had 4 hours sleep to picking up the phone, and you're under pressure again. So I remember I phoned Faddy straight away. Honestly, I must have phoned that poor boy about 40 times that day, and I'm texting him. I said, you need to answer, blah blah blah. And I was in the office by this point, so it must have been about 10 to 5. And here my phone goes, and it was him. And he was driving. He was playing for Everton at the time. So he'd been up. He'd stayed at his parents in Glasgow, and he was driving by down. So he gave me the story that I says, "What did you do when you get in?" He says, "Oh, my mum was waiting up for me. She gave me a rolling sausage and a cup of tea." So Scotland Star celebrates with a rolling square. And honestly, Ross, I came off that phone, and I was just, and I said to, I did that to Wilsey. I said, I've got him. And he's leaping up, and he finally says, "Great job, brilliant," and that was. But 24 the following morning, you're back into right. What else is going on? That was the kind of environment at the time. It was great. The buzz was incredible.
With the Euros upon us, I hope you enjoyed that insight from Andy into the pressure on journalists during the game and after the game. Euro 2024 is right around the corner. Scotland are playing against Germany, and we're all looking for a great result. Please do remember to like, share and subscribe to the podcast. There's plenty of episodes there, including Andy's full episode to go back and listen to. In the meantime, have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.